No discutamos, porque después de la primera discusión hay muchas más. Hoy terminamos.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 59 of the Highly Relevant Podcast. I am your host, Jack Rico, and you are listening to Luis Miguel's No Discutamos. It's from his Mexico por Siempre album that just dropped not too long ago. The song is originally a Juan Gabriel hit, but I think that Luis Miguel owns this track. For me, this is now the definitive version of the song. I don't think anybody else can interpret this song any better. His voice sounds healthy, full of power and feeling. The rest of the album is pretty good as well. It's a return to him singing boleros and rancheras, which he has mastered, much like Carlos Vives has mastered vallenato when he used to be a pop singer. And, it's tough to do when your vocal stylings are made for pop music and you decide to go into a different genre and actually master it to become one of the best interpreters of the genre in your generation. The thing is, Luis Miguel also has a Christmas album. It's called Navidades Luis Miguel, which in my mind is the best Spanish language Christmas album ever made. It's big band arrangements, sung in Spanish. It's a crazy yet beautiful combination that I just can't erase from my mind. Check these two albums out from arguably the best Latino singer of our generation. That's not offending in any way Marc Anthony, but I just think Luis Miguel sort of summarizes the best of the best in Latino singers for the last 30 some odd years. With that said, the Golden Globe nominations are coming up this Monday, December 11th. Actually, I'll be on Megyn Kelly's show Monday morning at 9 a.m. to discuss it. But in this episode, I'm honored to have as a guest an institution in the world of film criticism. His name is Jeffrey Lyons. You might have heard of him. You might have seen him when you were a kid growing up and watching sneak previews on PBS like I did. He breaks down what movies he thinks have a shot at Best Picture at the Golden Globes and mentions to me and suggests some under-the-radar films which you should see anyway.
In the world we run, bikini bottom our own hometown.
And I had a chance to go to Broadway this week and caught SpongeBob SquarePants the musical. Everybody I mentioned this to would just laugh at me while they look away. I knew what they were thinking. It's like, oh my God, why would you even bother going to a cartoon musical that's just made specifically for kids? And that's kind of like the preconditioned sort of sentiment that I had going into it. But you're not going to believe what is coming out of my mouth right now, but I think SpongeBob SquarePants is the best new musical on Broadway right now. I know, you think I'm mad, but it's a bit genius somehow. Stick around and I'll explain in detail why I feel so strongly about the show. So keep your headphones on. This is the Highly Relevant Podcast. Jeffrey Lyons is a film critic with a remarkable resume. Apart from having reviewed over 15,000 movies, Mr. Lyons has co-authored 6 books and co-hosted national movie review shows on PBS, MSNBC, and NBC stations. He is currently the film critic for WCBS Radio in New York. Hi, Jeffrey. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Hi there. Actually, it's 7 books, working on my 8th, and my Lyons Den reviews are heard all over these United States. I'm thrilled to report to you, so that's an update.
That's awesome. How long have you been in the business already, Jeffrey?
November 20th, 1970 was the first movie I reviewed professionally for Channel 11, and I was there for 21 years. And during that time, I also won the national auditions for sneak previews, succeeding those other guys, which I did for 12 years while staying at Channel 11 for a lot of them. And then in 1996, NBC4 came calling, and I was there for almost 13 years. And then they were sold to Comcast, and they had a cut budget or something. Who knows? So I've been on radio since 1974. And
that's the year I was born, by the way.
I have neckties older than you, Jack. Listen, Jack, I have news for you. Paul McCartney had a band before Wings, just so you know.
Yeah, okay? I've heard of them. I think they're called the Beatles.
Yeah. and they were pretty good. And I've been reviewing movies 5 a week since 1970, more than anybody ever has. And I've never lost my thirst for it. On the other hand, as you know, because I see you at screenings. When we've got a beautiful fall day, when it's about 65 degrees and it's crisp and the sun, and we have to see Transformers 3, you come out 2.5 hours closer to the grave for nothing.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's down in the trenches most of the times.
Pero tú en alguna ocasión hiciste críticas de películas en español.
De vez en cuando, su dinero, bear with us folks, su dinero pagó para el gobierno norteamericano enviarme a Sudamérica para hablar sobre películas en español. That's meaning your tax dollars sent me on a State Department visit to speak about American movies in Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Venezuela. That was in 1976. You were too young to go. And that was right during the time of the junta in Argentina and Chile, and the horrible Pinochet in Chile. So we got to see what life was like there.
Wow,
and
that's
again,
crazy.
Again, I got into trouble. The word to choose in Spanish is coger. But
everybody
you're
has an
laughing
issue with
because
that one.
In your part of where you learned your
Yeah.
Spanish, coger means something
Yes.
completely different.
Oh, yeah.
So I was saying when a director chooses an actress, and the room would start to laugh, and I'm not going to give up my way of speaking. And so I learned that there are differences in the language. It's amazing. And then, people who don't know lump Guatemala with Ecuador and Honduras. They all speak different dialects of Spanish.
That's true.
I learned a Dominican word, baboso, which I think translates as sleazy, something like that.
Oye, pero eres un baboso.
Well, yeah, and in Spain they don't know what that means. Little green peas in Spain are called guisantes. In South America and Latin America, I think they're chicharos.
Now, what do you think about film criticism in general, I guess, between the time you started and what film criticism is today in the era of the Rotten Tomatoes?
I never look at Rotten Tomatoes. I don't like to. I know everybody does, and it's very important. But I don't like a website named Rotten Tomatoes. Like that's what you're going to throw at an actor. The night before I became a critic, I had dinner with Ruth Gordon, who at the age of 69 won the Oscar and held it up and said, "You can't imagine how encouraging a thing like this is." And she said, "Remember, Sonny, you're starting your career tomorrow. Think twice before you blank on somebody else's work."
Wow.
And I never forgot that. And somebody told me when the plane's going down, before they throw the luggage out, they throw film critics out. So, I saw Siskel and Ebert on TV knock Sandy Dennis, a Tony Award-winning actress, saying she should be in the aluminum siding business. And so you don't do that. And I saw them attack Kate Capshaw sitting next to her on The Tonight Show. They were awful on television. They were the first, that's all. They were two newspaper guys who dressed terribly. When you're on TV, sitting on a couch, you don't cross your legs so the audience is looking at the bottom of your shoe. They turned their nose up at television. And they hated us because we beat them in the ratings a lot of the times. We beat them without any publicity on PBS, and they had big, private, commercial TV budgets and salaries, and we beat them in their own town in Chicago. They hated us, but it's ridiculous. Now it's changed. There's only you, and there's Sandy Kenyon, and very few people left on TV. I'm not on TV because they don't like white hair on TV. There are very few, unless you're Anderson Cooper or maybe. The guy on CNN, the Situation Room, Wolf Blitzer.
Oh, Wolf Blitzer, yeah.
Very few people who with white hair, unless you're on 60 Minutes. So thank goodness for radio, and I can keep doing it.
So what do you think is going to happen to film reviews as a whole? Is it going to be just, internet critics?
I hope not. As long as I'm doing it, I plan to do it forever. An internet critic, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who the person is. You haven't built up a following over the years. You don't know whether to trust them or not. At least that's how I see it. And the New York Times still has a critic, and the Post has a critic. The Daily News does not generally, and that's too bad.
Yeah.
But they need money, so maybe online they do. Meanwhile, my niece, Margaret Lyons, is the television critic for the New York Times. Every Friday, she has a column in print.
Wait,
saying,
I know Margaret Lyons. She's your niece?
That's my niece, my brother's daughter.
Wow.
Yeah. She writes a thing that says, I have half an hour and I want a British comedy. And
yeah.
And that's all positive stuff. Now, online, it's different. She's free to vent her rage at other things. But she watches TV in the morning, noon, and night for her work.
Speaking of TV, Jeffrey, I was wondering what you thought about the Golden Globes coming up. The nominations are happening this Monday.
Yeah, I never used to watch them. I never did because I thought it was silly. They called Pia Zadora the most promising actress, and there was, it was what the Hollywood foreign press. How can a critic from the Italian magazine L'Uomo or whatever tell me that 2.5 Men is funnier than Everybody Loves Raymond? How can they do that? I can't tell what Italian show is funnier.
So why do you think that the Golden Globes has come so far?
It's fun to see all the stars get smashed and sitting with the TV stars, and they're a lot less formal. And so I kind of look at them. If there's a Monday Night Football on, I'll have that on without sound. We give you an early barometer of the Oscars, I guess. But Oscar nominations come out right after that, and that's the one that really makes or breaks a career. Really does.
Got it. So in your opinion, the Golden Globes doesn't have the credibility that people should probably.
Like the People's Choice Awards. Even our Broadcast Critics Award. I presume you're in the Broadcast Film Critics,
right? BFCA.
And, we have some impact, I guess, but it's okay. It's harmless. It's nice to see stars smashed, a little bit high, and they're a lot less formal, and they can say whatever they want. But the Oscars should be serious business, except for the opening monologue.
Absolutely. Well, the Golden Globes. Part of what separates it from the Oscars is that it honors different types of categories, like for example, comedy and musicals each year. Have you seen any worthwhile comedies or musicals?
I would have to look over the list, and I don't think I have that really made me crack up. I don't think so.
Well, there's Girls Trip, The Disaster Artist.
Oh, that was okay. Yeah. Well, you and I are not the intended audience. I understand that. That's the thing. A lot of critics forget. That's why I often don't go to animated ones, because they're critic proof, and if you knock them too much, you sound like a nasty old person. They're made for children. Most of them are made for children.
Right.
There are some one I'm really looking forward to is Ferdinand. Because of the bullfighting. Yes, and I have friends who raise fighting bulls, so I've got to get them a copy of that one. They're screening it on a Saturday, and I'm not going to go on a Saturday and work, so who knows. But so I didn't see, other than that one, I didn't see many. They don't make many comedy. Well, the Woody Allen movie isn't even a comedy, so they don't make many comedies anymore, or so it seems.
Yeah. Now, what about foreign language films? Have you seen anything international that?
I saw
liked?
A film called 13 Minutes. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No, not yet.
13. Well, opened in January, so you're a little late. But 13 Minutes is a true story of a tinkerer, a watchmaker, who knew that Hitler was going to give a speech on the 10th anniversary of the Beer Hall Putsch. The 17th anniversary of the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich, and he knew where Hitler was going to stand, and he built a bomb and placed it right under the podium. And unfortunately for world history, it rained that day, and Hitler had to get back to Berlin. So instead of flying later in the afternoon when the weather would clear, he took the train earlier and cut his 2-hour speech to 1 hour, and the bomb went off just 13 minutes after he left and killed 60 people. And it's a musical. No, I'm kidding. And the guy who planted the bomb was captured right away and tortured. And it's a true
Sounds
story
like Valkyrie.
Here. Yeah, it's I beg your pardon?
Sounds like Valkyrie, like from Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's right. It's very similar. But this is an heretofore unsung hero. That to me was one of the best foreign language films. Then I love the documentary called Big Sonia. Big Sonia is just opening now. It's a true story of a Holocaust survivor who ran the only remaining store in an abandoned mall in Kansas City, a dress shop and a tailor to business, she and her husband. And she survived Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, which is where Anne Frank died. And she goes around to schools and prisons and lectures on the Holocaust and shows off the number on her arm. And she came to my film club, and everybody in my film club, like 250, 300 people, got to meet her afterwards, and they mobbed her. And she said she slipped me her phone number. She's 92. And she says she wants Barbara Streisand to play her in a movie, and she's feisty. And I asked the director, who was her granddaughter, I said, "Did you have to reshoot any scenes?" He said, "Yes, her driving scenes."
That's
92.
Crazy. Wow.
That's a film I hope people see.
And then before I let you go, Jeffrey, how would you summarize this year in terms of quality movie making? Do you think this was a great year for movies?
There were some, especially movies about World War II, and I'll tell you several that made my list. One called that you probably missed, called Their Finest. Their Finest takes place right after Dunkirk, when the British people needed to raise their morale. So this troupe of actors, headed by what's his name from? Oh, I'll tell you in a minute. Anyway, Bill Nye, who's always like, he plays a ham actor. They put on a little play they're going to make a little movie for the British people to lift their spirits, and they have to recreate Dunkirk. So instead of the 400,000 extras in the movie Dunkirk, within the movie, they painted some soldiers off in the distance, put it on a piece of glass, and put it in front of the camera, and that was Dunkirk. I like that film a lot. And then I like Dunkirk, and I like Darkest Hour about Churchill, and I like the Washington Post movie called The Post. I like Victoria and Abdul, Shot Caller, a tough prison movie. I like The Exception with Christopher Plummer as Kaiser Wilhelm. And I like two movies about fathers and sons called Dean with Kevin Kline and Brad Status with Ben Stiller taking his son around to colleges, wondering about his own life.
Oh, yes,
Did he make a
Ben
mistake?
Status.
It's a sweet movie, yeah.
That's right. It's on my queue. Did you see Call Me By Your Name by any chance, or
Yes,
The Florida
Call Me-
Project?
First of all, the first one I thought was the most pretentious bore of the year.
Call Me By Your Name.
Yeah, and the second one, one of the few people who did not like the Florida Project. I don't know how you felt about it. You probably liked it, right?
I did like it because
I had no interest in this woman, this druggie cover with tattoos and with the kids running around them. I kept saying, what is Willem Dafoe doing in this dreary movie? I thought it was just so, and it's going to get nominated, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, what about The Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro and
I didn't buy
Francis
it.
McDormand from?
He made Pan's Labyrinth, one of the great films I've ever seen. But I didn't buy this movie about a woman falling in love with a guy who's half fish, half man. It was inventive. It was well done. But please, this did not happen. It was just too far out for me. But it's gotten a lot of praise too.
And then finally, I know that the last time I saw you at the Justice League screening, and you had mentioned 3 under the radar films that you were raving about. That you said, Jack, you have to see these films before the end of the year. One of them I think was called Lucky, and another one called Hero.
What's the first one?
Lucky.
Lucky, yeah, it's a sweet movie. It's the last movie of its star, Harry Dean Stanton. Yeah, he plays an old codger, well cast. And what were the other two?
I believe one was called Hero.
Hero, yeah, I'll tell you about. And the third one was what? Dog Years.
I think that's the one. Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you a quick story. Hero is with Sam Elliott, and he plays a washed-up Western cowboy star honored at a little film festival. And in any other year, I would say he'll be nominated. But there's a movie previously called Dog Years. I'll give you a little news. They changed the title to it, called The Last Movie Star, written for and about Burt Reynolds.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and
you love that movie.
Oh my! I've seen it 4 times, and it's won every film festival prize. It did play at Tribeca, and I'm surprised they're opening it this year because it's going to compete with Hero because it's about a washed-up movie star, a big star in the '70s, given a film festival. And Burt Reynolds, it's slightly fictionalized about his life, and he gives the best performance of his career, bar none, playing essentially himself. They use a different name. And I'm watching Burt Reynolds at night before I go to sleep. I'm watching Gunsmokers on channel 461. It's so high up to get a nosebleed trying to find it, and not the color version, the black and white Gunsmokes. And that I remember. You see all these old actors from that era, and boy, Burt Reynolds people don't realize he hosted the Tonight Show 14 times.
Oh wow!
He was on more than anybody, and I think he suffered from overexposure. And I don't mean to pun on his nude photograph in Playgirl, I think it was. And he was on Hollywood Squares and everywhere. And he's not that way now. So I interviewed him when I was at the Vero Beach Film Festival, and his body is broken with arthritis because he was a football star and a stuntman. And, he's not married, and I don't know if he lives alone, but there's a lot of truth to this movie. And when you see it, it's the most poignant film you're going to see in a long time. So keep an eye out for it. It's now called The Last Movie Star.
The Last Movie Star. Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's a pleasure to talk to you and to hear these amazing, great stories.
Right.
CBS Radio in New York City, correct, is where everybody can tune in to.
WCBS in New York, WLNG on Long Island, and stations around these United States, too.
All right, Jeffrey, thank you so much. Have a good
next
one.
All
right. It's time for Jacked In. Let's begin with the top movie news of the week. Superstar directors Quentin Tarantino and J.J. Abrams are teaming up for a new Star Trek movie. The remake of Stephen King's Pet Sematary will premiere April 19th, 2019. Julia Roberts will star in a new movie called Ben is Back. Ryan Reynolds is going to star in the Pokemon movie as Detective Pikachu. Latino actor Oscar Isaac will star in a new drama for Amazon Studios. And the new Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom trailer is out now. Listen.
I know why we're here. A rescue op. Save the dinosaurs from the island that's about to explode. What could go wrong?
In TV news, a reboot of The Twilight Zone from Jordan Peele and Marco Ramirez is coming to CBS All Access. Netflix's House of Cards will continue its sixth and final season as planned, but without Kevin Spacey. ABC has hired Alec Baldwin to do a new interview show based on his podcast, Here's the Thing. Will Smith will host National Geographic's upcoming event series from director Darren Aronofsky, and Discovery buys part of Oprah's stake in OWN for $70 million. Switching over to music, Juanes will do a first ever Spanish language music performance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert Monday, December 11th. Lin-Manuel Miranda will be writing new songs for Disney's live-action adaptation of The Little Mermaid. U2 has a new album out now titled Songs of Experience, and Camila Cabello's self-titled album will debut January 12th. And in digital and social media news, have you guys heard of the new app HQ Trivia? It's the new American fixation that might just have changed the way we watch live video. Amazon Prime Video now available on Apple TV. YouTube says it's adding 10,000 staffers in 2018, and Instagram is testing Direct, a standalone messaging app that replaces the current inbox. For someone who has never seen an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants cartoons in his life, I can't believe I like this theatrical adaptation so much. I kept on shaking my head in disbelief on how it rarely gave me an excuse to dislike it. Adapted from the cartoon of the same name, this absurdly wild and multicolored staging sees our hero SpongeBob trying to save his home of Bikini Bottom from total annihilation from an erupting volcano. As soon as you walk into the theater, you can't help but feel a theme park or circus atmosphere. The inventive opening cell phone skit sets the tone for what to expect from the show, which follows ultra-imaginative production numbers that spill into the audience while listening to catchy songs composed by hit stars like Aerosmith, John Legend, Cyndi Lauper, and Sarah Bareilles, to name a few. Among the visual and eccentric carnival of oddities, the show still manages to weave a message of overcoming challenges in the face of adversity with your closest friends.
For I might be your shining star.
SpongeBob SquarePants is a crowd pleaser of the highest order. If you're a regular fan, you're gonna love it. If you've never seen an episode in your life, you'll wish you had been a fan from the very beginning. It's a little long at 2 hours and 30 minutes, but when you're having this much fun, who's looking at the time? SpongeBob SquarePants, the Broadway musical, is playing now at the Palace Theater in New York. That's it for episode 59 of the Highly Relevant Podcast. I'd like to thank Jeffrey Lyons for taking time out to be on our show, and thank you guys for listening from your favorite streaming platform wherever you may be. I'd love to hear from you. Send me your questions or feedback to highlyrelevant@showbizcafe.com. That's highlyrelevant@showbizcafe.com. Also, if you like this US Latino podcast, please share it on your social media apps. Tell your friends all about it. And if you can, have them subscribe to the show. Hope you enjoy your weekend and stay connected with us via showbizcafe.com. See you next week on another episode of Highly